Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Mary Kimball. I'm USQ's Executive Director, and I'm going to be the moderator today for our discussion about Anna Meriano's brand new book, This Is How We Fly. Hi, Anna.
Hi, Mary. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? It's so nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, we have so much to talk about. But before we dive in, I want to just give people a little bit of a primer on your book. So can you give us like the 2-sentence snazzy blurb about your new novel?
Yes, I just knocked something over, but it's fine. Yes, so this is my novel, This Is How We Fly. It is about a just graduated from high school student, Ellen. She is a loose Cinderella character in that she has a kind of an evil stepmom, so she gets grounded for the whole summer, and the only thing she's allowed to do outside of her house is join a Quidditch team. So the whole summer is about her kind of getting ready for college, taking a little more like control of her life, figuring out her family relationships and her friend relationships, and yeah, looking forward to the future. Coming of age story.
Awesome. And for those of you that haven't been following the buzz around Anna's book for the last few months, it's gotten rave reviews so far, both from readers and from critics. It's gotten 2-starred reviews, one's from Kirkus Reviews and then another from Publishers Weekly. So audiences and everyone are just loving it. The first part of this program will be spoiler free, and we will clearly say when we're getting into spoiler territory. Spoilers mean basically anything that's not on the inside jacket description. So we might talk about basic plot points, but we won't like cover the ending unless we're saying spoilers.
It's hard to spoil the plot of this book because the plot is like she grows.
Yeah. So
there are people who are nice. Like,
yeah. If this is a primer before you read the book, rest assured you could still get a lot out of it while enjoying the rest of the story. And the book is obviously on sale now. It was published last month. You can get it from independent booksellers or anywhere books are sold. You can also get it from your library. That's where I got my copy. Shout out to the Snow Isles library system coming in there. If your library doesn't have a copy yet, which I'd be surprised if they wouldn't, because Anna has a pretty popular other book series that I think really helped drive awareness for this one. You can always request it for free, and then your library can get a copy, and then you will help your community be able to read this book because,
and it helps me just the same as buying a book. So like, yes, library requests.
Yeah. I personally love the book. I read it in a flurry over this weekend. I had a bunch of copies in my office for weeks because we did a giveaway, and it was so hard not to dive into them myself, but I knew those copies were for the fans. So I had such a great experience reading it. It was such a spot on depiction of what playing Quidditch was like, which I think for the Quidditch fans watching this, whether you've been in the community, this is maybe your first or second season, or you've been around as long as Anna and some of the other people have been involved with USQ for, like 10, even 15 years, nearly the entire length of our sport. I think there's something for everyone to enjoy here just because of how relatable it is. And it made me miss everyone in the community even more.
Yeah.
We all haven't seen each other for nearly a year. It's coming on about 10 or 11 months since USQ last had an event, which is the last time I saw anyone. So this book will help make you remember why you love playing and will make you look forward to when we can all get sweaty together and play summer Quidditch. Summer Quidditch especially, there's something incredibly special about the kind of league that Ellen Lopez-Wark, the protagonist, plays in. But before we dive into some of the details of the book, Anna, you've been, like we said, you've been playing Quidditch for a pretty long time, since around, I think, 2013. So how did you first get started, and what teams have you played with?
Yeah, thanks. I started playing in college, which I think a lot of people do start playing Quidditch in college. Um, I was at Rice University in Houston. We actually don't have a team anymore. Um, the Rice team and the U of H team that both existed at different points sort of like helped feed and create the Houston Cosmos, which is the Houston community team now, which is the team that I now play for. And also I think a few other like sort of surrounding area teams or little mini teams. But I got my start at Rice Quidditch. We went to, I have the trading cards. What is this? World Cup 6. World Cup 6. There's Sophie. We went to World Cup 6 in Florida. And the team had existed 1 year before that, but I didn't know about it. So the second year they were around, they got their marketing a little stronger and I was able to join. Then I graduated from Rice and I moved to New York, kind of with no idea what that meant or what New York was or anything. I was doing grad school for writing, which so New York was a good place to be, but I didn't have any family there. I'd never even like visited the city. So the only thing I really knew was that I had met the New York Badassalisks in Florida in May. So in September, when I moved up, I like reached out to the team and I was like, hey, I hear that you exist. If I go to Central Park, will I see you? And they were like, let's give you some cross streets. And so I joined the New York Badassalisks. That was a really great team. They were just so much fun. Such a good mix of people, community and other community teams. So like some people coming out of college, some people, I think even in high school, some people who were in their 40s, personal trainers, people who had come through the Harry Potter fan club and had never really like been athletic before that. Some LARPers, some people who did like Jedi sword fight choreography in their spare time besides Quidditch. So that was a great team. And it also gave me some like people to hang out with outside of my little writing grad school bubble. It gave me an excuse to travel on the weekends. So I got to meet a lot of the Northeastern players, New Jersey teams and Philadelphia teams and Boston, everything. And then I moved back to Houston. Oh, and also every summer, since I was doing school and in the summers I would come back to Houston, every summer I was playing with Houston Summer Quidditch, which was another thing that sort of evolved to become the Houston Cosmos. For a while we were just Houston Summer Quidditch or like Houston Winter Quidditch. And that was like again, a really strong community, a lot of friends, a lot of very casual play where you could like drop in and out, not necessarily do a lot of intense tournaments or intense training and just show up and have fun. Then when I moved back to Houston, the Cosmos were just starting to form. And I was able to kind of jump in, I think maybe the second year of the Cosmos existing. And I've been playing with the Cosmos for, I guess, 5 years-ish, on and off, because sometimes I have a lot of more work.
It's so interesting to hear about the teams that you've played with. It really strikes me as an interesting connection given how prominently, and we'll get to this a little bit later, but how prominently place is such an important part of This Is How We Fly, with the city of Houston and the state of Texas playing in a Texas way, a very outsized role in the narrative. Texas has a very iconic place in Quidditch history, being the home of so many competitive teams that have been with the league for a while, like the A&M team that Carrie, I believe it is. Yeah, Carrie and then Melissa eventually ends up going to. They've been around since the second or third national championship. Then there's the Badassalists. You have like you mentioned, Central Park. There's the Dust Bowl, I believe is what it. Yeah, which I don't think we're allowed to use anymore, but like it's on the Central Park map as like the Quidditch pitch.
Yeah. Oh man, so many days of like broken glass and dust in my shoes.
But before we get to talking about more of, the places in the book and how that connects to Quidditch in real life, I know that you also have an international connection to the sport as well, and that you've been involved with in a few different ways Quidditch Mexico, both with their national team and then actually traveling to Mexico to play in their league and everything. So can you give us a little bit of background as to how you got involved and what it's been like getting involved with that side of the community?
Yes, sorry, Team Mexico. I left you off because I wasn't like ever joined on a team, so chronologically I forgot about it. Well, so I mostly got involved with Team Mexico through my fiance Ariel Heibloom. He, after college, we were both on the Rice Quidditch team, and after college, he moved back to Mexico City and kind of helped create or helped organize the NGB of Quidditch Mexico, and including creating the Mexico City Metropolitan League. And so when like World Cups started to be actual World Cups rather than just the national cups that they were in 2012 or 13, he was traveling, I wanted to go, and we were kind of looking into like what were the citizenship requirements, and I didn't really qualify for any of those. I have Mexican American heritage, but like it's been in Texas for far too long for it to be applicable to actual Mexico. So I just sort of became the like, I'm traveling with the team, like I support you, cheerleader, hydration specialist, translator sometimes. I think they wrote me down as coach, but that was way too flattering. I was not doing any coaching. And honestly, that's just been such a fun experience. The Mexican team has been really nice about like accepting me as a gringo, like just hanging out, being there. Made some really good friends, and I did go and play. I think just in like a fantasy tournament or just just one day, got to play with some people. And then I got to play at it was like a parody game. I don't remember what was going on. We were like messing up rules. We picked up Benepi at one point. I don't know. At that one World Cup that happened at one point. But I got to play as the representative of Team Mexico since I wasn't an official player. And yeah, I think that like being able to go to those international Quidditch events, meet the more international Quidditch community has just been very like, wow, this sport is doing something really cool. It's connecting people who would have no reason to meet otherwise. It's so much fun to be like, we have a team Slovakia and a team Slovenia. Woo! And yeah, and it's cool to see people coming together over something so strange and so fun. And yeah, that's how I feel about international Quidditch.
And it sounds like all of that must have really stuck with you because that's such an important part of Ellen's story to some degree, right? Her reconciling her complicated family history, especially the family that's not necessarily as present with her anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I think identity ends up being a theme across my different works of fiction, because it is kind of a weird, there's lots of people in Texas. Actually, the Rice Quidditch team, we had so many people who were Mexican American, bicultural, Mexican American and something else, people who like spoke varying degrees of Spanish. I think we called ourselves like the Mexican crew or the Mexican squad or something silly. And like that experience was actually really, really common on that team, which is cool. And I think it's just common in Texas to kind of feel this like tension between like your ethnicity or your heritage being Mexican, but also like not that connected to Mexico. And then, when I go to Team Mexico and I'm like, oh, this is like actual Mexico. So then what am I? I'm actually American. And I think in America, we have this sort of like unique focus on like past heritages rather than just saying we're American. We're always like hyphenating ourselves because everyone is kind of diaspora, not everyone, but a lot of people. So I think that shows up in a lot of my works. It shows up in maybe a side character a little bit more in my Love, Sugar, Magic series. There's a bicultural friend character, and then also with Leo's family. I don't need to get into Love, Sugar, Magic right now.
Well, we keep talking about place. So let's dive into some of the questions on the book.
Yeah.
So the city of Houston, and to some degree the state of Texas, but especially Houston, it's like another character in many ways in terms of how the importance to being in Houston, the way that being in Houston affects the characters, it affects their choices. It's you get nearly as strong of a sense of Houston and what the city's like as you do Ellen and her best friends and everyone else that we get to meet in the book. So what about Houston stands out to you, and why did you decide to make it the main setting for the book?
Um, Thank you for saying that. I just wanted to say that's so nice. I Houston is my hometown. It's where I grew up, and where I moved back after that brief stint in New York. Um, and I was very much the insufferable Texan in New York, telling everyone all the time that Texas was better and that Houston was more diverse than New York City. By the way, it's true. That we're the #1 most diverse city in the country. That we're like starting to be the new food capital, that we have all this great stuff and people don't realize. So yeah, I think I wrote this book in a really cool time in my life where I started the book when I lived in New York and really missed Houston. So I was writing kind of with a little bit of nostalgia. And then I moved back in time to do all of my editing. And so I was like there living it. And suddenly I wasn't so nostalgic for the heat anymore. And I was like, no, the heat just sucks. So I think that that was a good thing for the writing, being able to sort of write it with this very romanticized, I love Houston and I want to show it and I want to represent it. And I was so sick of people talking about how great New York was. And I wanted to write a book that was as focused on Texas as so much of our literary canon is focused on New York. And then actually being here to do the revisions. When I grew up, I read so much about New York. I read so much that I knew that stone lions were a sign of books without knowing why. I did not know. I kept reading it and I was like, that means books. Never seen the library, never knew what it was about. I just knew it was metaphor. So yeah, and then the only Texas book I ever read growing up was Holes, which is a great book. Nothing bad to say about Holes. Oh, and Hank the Cowdog. But both of those show Texas as deserts and cowboys and racism. Maybe not so much in Hank the Cowdog. And there are deserts and cowboys and racism in Texas, but that's not really my experience of Texas. So I was really happy to be able to write kind of my own experience of Texas, showing how diverse it is. I know that Quidditch has gone through a little bit of a reckoning of making sure that we're really inclusive and diverse on the racial axis as well as the gender axis recently. But I do feel like the Houston teams that I've been on have maybe done a better job, or not done a better job, but have been a little more inclusive than the average when people are thinking about Quidditch teams. And I wanted to show that. The schools that I went to also were like that, and the city is like that. So I wanted to show the Houston, the swamp, the big cityness. I had one reviewer, I shouldn't read my reviews, but I had one reviewer that mentioned, oh, well, Ellen considers herself an environmentalist, but she drives in a car everywhere. If she's such an environmentalist, why doesn't she use public transportation?
Has she been to Houston? Oh.
I was like, oh, honey, she lives in a suburb. There's no public transportation. We don't have that.
Houston is 100 miles long or something like that. Every time I go to Houston, I feel like to get anywhere else in the city, I have to go into another state almost, in terms of just how long it takes me. It's such a big place.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the Northeast, that was my big thing, was we can do a day trip 2 states over, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, that was kind of a funny example. I also had a copy editor once in one of my other books, which are also set in Texas, say, you say that the ceiling fan is on, but it's November. Yep, that's correct.
I think that was probably my favorite thing that consistently came up, especially because obviously the book is set in the summer, which if you've never had the pleasure of going to Texas, it is the hottest in the summer. Um,
Yeah.
you know, whether it's going to tournaments or, you know, some of the more like behind the scenes work I'll do where I'll go visit a city because they want to host a USQ event, like you're just so hot all the time. And anytime I go to Texas and it's not 100 degrees, I just feel like so betrayed, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone who went to, what was it? I can't remember if it was Alamo Cup or something. There was some event in Texas a year or two ago and everyone froze and they were
Oh,
just so crushed.
was
Or
it the
like
Round Rock World Cup? I feel like that one was cold.
that was a different cold event. Yeah.
Okay.
I was ready to wear like the cutest outfit with shiny tennis shoes and shorts and a blazer and I was ready and I think I wore shorts for like an hour.
Yeah,
So it's not always hot, but most
especially in
of
the
the time
summer.
it's hot in Texas and it's it's just there. It's a constant presence. Some people deal with it better than others. Like if you're from Texas or Louisiana, you're like, this is fine. But me, like I live in the Pacific Northwest where it gets, you know, like 85 degrees in the summer. It'll be
Yeah.
92 for a day. It'll be a heat wave. So you mentioned that you were writing the book for a while, that you started during this period of time when you were in New York City after college. So where did the idea come from? What was the impetus for it? And then what was it like writing it over such a long period, given how much has changed, right? Like off-pitch seeking, mouth guards, no more bristles on the brooms. I mean, capes weren't really a thing by the time you were there, but like
Right.
we've just done a lot of different things that we no longer carry with us anymore. So what
Yeah, I mean, like
those,
a month before the book came out, we suddenly changed Brooms Up. Maybe no one's
I
gotten to
know
play it
we
yet, but
did. We did. We made it from a start, from instead
which
of everyone running at each other, it's on the
seems
sidelines.
safer, TBA. But
Yeah.
it seems safer. But like, yeah, I was a little worried. I was like, oh well, it is what it is at this point. Like it's coming out. Um, but yeah, there have been a lot of changes. Some of them I've discussed with my teammates, like as we're going along and I'm doing the revisions. I've been talking about like, should I put mouth guards in? Maybe I'll just mention them and then not. It's summer Quidditch. Who wears mouth guards in summer Quidditch?
I appreciated that, especially Carrie being like, "Don't worry, I have extras." I'm just like, "Oh, you're such a good team captain."
Yeah. And then, but like for example, I don't write Ellen putting on a mouth guard, which is a whole experience if you've never done it before. And I just kind of skipped over it because when I was writing the book, that wasn't a thing. The idea for the book was actually, I was in New York, I was watching Cinderella on Broadway, which is super cool. That was one
Such a
really good part
gorgeous
about living
version
in New
too.
York. Oh, sorry?
It was such a gorgeous version too.
Yeah, with Carly Rae Jepsen wasn't in it the day I saw it, but yeah. And I just remember thinking like, oh, I like this adaptation of Cinderella because she's like a little bit political. She like tries to kind of influence the prince on his policy. And so many versions of Cinderella, they have her as this like very passive, very like milquetoast, nice character. I'm mostly just shading Disney right now, but so I liked seeing that, and I was like, oh, and I've always loved fairy tale retellings. I was writing bad ones in college before I decided to actually pursue writing as a career. Especially contemporary retellings of fairy tales. That was just like a thing that I was drawn to. So I got the idea of like, I would love to write like a political, like activist Cinderella. And then I was like, oh, well, obviously she would be vegan because friend to the animals. And I was like, and I've been wanting to write a Quidditch story. So like, what if it was just a tournament instead of a ball? And then that was like kind of the idea that I walked out and was like, I have my next story. I'm gonna like try it. That was 2014. So it's been a little while. It's been a journey. So yeah, I did a lot of revisions with not so many with regards to the structure of the summer league, which you were talking about. I really kind of made that up from scratch actually before we had anything like TSL. Really all we had was the capital letters fantasy tournament, which is only really one event. And so I kind of was like, let's just pretend that we have like teams that form over the summer and they do multiple tournaments. And then like a couple years later, TSL showed up and I was like, oh, good, excellent. This is more realistic now. So that was a nice, I don't know, serendipity, life imitating the art that no one had seen yet. And then I know, so Texas was already playing with PVC pipes. The Northeast, when I played, was not. We were like buying little mini brooms wrapped in plastic from Chinatown. That's a whole other experience.
I love it.
but Texas had pretty much already like solidified PVC is the way to go. So I was actually writing PVC pipes before they were standardized. And then what were the other changes? I can't remember, but I think I tried to stay pretty vague on like specific rules, specific times, because I knew all of that could pitch. I never wrote the pitch dimensions, luckily. I probably did, and somebody probably told me to cut it because it was not important. So yeah, I think I just tried to capture like the spirit more than the like super detailed look. I know that the beater strategy has changed. That was something that I was worried about, and I discussed this with my teammate Ashton, who does a lot of podcasting and is cool. Where like I was writing a character who was playing the sport the way that I had played the sport 3 or 4 years ago. Beating had really changed, because when I started beating, it was really something that you stuck your non-athletic players at. Like, oh, you don't like to run? Okay, just stand by the hoops with a bludger. And it is not that anymore. And I had to kind of grow and evolve with the position. And so like I had to change some of what Ellen was doing on the field. I had to make her a little more aggressive. And then of course there's that, this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler, but was that nice scene at the end where one of her teammates plays a little more defensively, and I was like, okay, well, at least it's unusual now. At least it's like a different strategy. Maybe it would really surprise people.
I think the way all of the gameplay was approached was actually one of the more surprising but delightful things about the book. Was that, I mean, so I've been involved with Quidditch for about 6 years, and I first became aware of Quidditch around the time that you started playing, around 2011, 2012. So I've seen many different versions of it, but for the most part, it's been more or less a similar-ish game. Thankfully, it's not as slow as it used to be. Like, in the middle of my time with USQ, we had like the slowest final ever, and thankfully, it's not as much like that.
Texas State.
Yes, I know. Where nothing happened for 8 minutes. We were just like, what? But anyways, I loved the way that the games were very exciting and I could follow it, but not in a way that made me think like, oh, this is definitely like a Rulebook 8 game or a Rulebook 11 game or something. And it almost felt like
it helped that Ellen didn't know what was going on. Sorry.
It felt timeless in a weird way. It's weird to just imagine Quidditch as being a timeless sport because we're only 15 years old, but like that's how it felt. Like you distilled the complexity of the referees down to basically just one person. It was, I double checked. There were other referees mentioned. There were, like they didn't have a name or whatever, but it just like the way that you distilled everything down to the parts that mattered, I think it created a really lovely experience for the reader, right? For someone like me who knows it really well, I filled in everything. But if you're a newbie, you just got to watch Ellen take pride in being like an engaged beater and face beat people and take tackles and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, thank you. So I had a lot of help with that. Like you're saying that like, oh yes, I distilled it. I'm like, oh no, I wrote pages and pages and pages. And then my friends, beta readers and editors were like, Chuck. But I'm glad that it worked. I do remember having really early on, like before this got to the edit, like with an official editor stage, one of my just excellent beta reader friends and writer friends was like, hey, every scene should have like an emotional component because your average reader won't be emotionally invested in the Quidditch. And so like using that as a driving kind of like, okay, what is Ellen feeling or what is she like trying to get out of this particular engagement or this particular scrimmage or whatever? I think helped do that, helped like focus it. It also helped that Ellen doesn't always know what's going on, so I didn't have to give details. Ellen is just like, what? Something happened and they dropped the ball. Okay. Oh, somebody came out of nowhere and took my ball. Okay. And like, I don't have to necessarily know the details because she doesn't know the details. And there was one other thing I was going to say about that, but now it has slipped my mind.
So you mentioned a few Quidditch players in the dedication of the book. And so, you know, this book makes waves. It's like the first time real life Quidditch has been depicted in fiction in a way that we know, a fictional book, I should say. Got to be the first time so many Quidditch players have been mentioned in the dedication of a book. And I just think that's so special. And I'm wondering if you could give us a little bit more info as to why you decided to mention those particular players and what impact they had. I know, you know, there's not one inspiration for a single character or anything like that, but if it's clear that, you know, the people in your life that you've played with or that you've looked up to, they've had an impact, and that shines through in some of the characters.
Yeah. I've made it a point to say that no character is based on any one Quidditch player except Kim Couch. The ref is just Kim Couch. She doesn't do anything. It's fine.
It's the skirt. It's
a ref in a skirt. Like,
how many times have I seen a picture of Kim commanding attention on the pitch while wearing that great skirt?
Yeah. But so my book is dedicated to, I have it right here, I could read it. Sophie Boniface, Brandy Cannon, and Molly Lensing. Mostly because those were the three people who in my very first season, really, I was going to even say my very first practice, but I don't think Brandy was necessarily there. But my very first season, my very first tournament, were the people who were showing me how to get into this community and play this game. So Sophie founded Rice Quidditch, so that, I wouldn't have played it if that team didn't exist. She was also one of the people who was very involved in Houston Summer Quidditch, and just kind of really helped the Houston community not fizzle out, and really taught me how to play, and led the team for a long time. And Brandy founded Sam Houston Quidditch, and of course, has stayed involved, has run tournaments, is on the board of directors now. So again, my very first tournament was, I think, run by Brandy, probably. If not, she was very involved in it. And again, just helping me see how the sport could look and how it could be organized and how it could, draw lots of different teams together. And then Molly Lensing was, I think, had maybe just graduated and moved to Houston or something like that when I joined. And so she was actually coming to the Rice practices, teaching us how to play, which is amazing that people were doing that, just showing up and saying hey, you guys don't know how to run, come do push-ups with me. I'll show you how to throw a ball. So really in that, but the reason I picked those three people was because they were the ones who were there at the very beginning when I was like Ellen, kind of deciding what is this sport? Should I play it? What am I doing? And then, bits and pieces of them have shown up in other characters, probably Carrie, mostly Carrie. It's Carrie. So it's dedicated to them, and then I think I say and all the Quid kids, or I can't remember. It's been a while since I read it. Yeah, all the Quid kids, because I think it's exciting too. I'm excited that we have a book about Quidditch, our Quidditch.
Yeah, it's so stupendous to be having this right now. It almost feels with the year we've had, it's just such a gift to have something that reminds us all of why we like playing.
Yeah, and with we've had kind of a rough time in the fandom, also this year, pretty much. Not that J.K. Rowling was on a great trajectory before summer, but she really went off on a whole other thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of excited. I know that there are some people who actually just don't want to read the book because of its relationship with Harry Potter. And like, I 100% respect that, because if this is hurting you, like, don't engage with it, it's okay. But I've been really happy to see some reviews and some people saying that, you know, in a time where it's hard to feel joy about being a Harry Potter fan anymore, this is like a way to engage that is nostalgic and fun, but not giving money to a bigot, or not like reliving those old things that don't feel like they match up with your morals anymore.
Yeah, and I think that was something that struck me about how you decided to handle it in the text, was that it seemed like, this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler if you have not read the whole of it. It's not really, but it sort of is. There are less Harry Potter references as you get further in the book, and I think in a wonderful way that's like a little bit of a microcosm of how we as a community have approached our connection to the Harry Potter universe, where initially it was a really big recruitment tactic. It might even still be to some extent, depending on the, you know, your team culture and what your vibe is. But more and more, we've just gotten sport first. We are a mixed gender sport. We value people of all genders. And as Ellen gets more into Quidditch, she and the people around her shed those book references, which I thought was a really lovely touch. Plus the, you know, game just gets so much more exciting, and then you don't really have room for mentioning anyone anyway.
Yeah, I also had, you talked about kind of like things that changed over the years. I also had like one frantic final pass pages before, like, you know, the book was finalized that happened right in like July, August of this year, or I guess of 2020. And I was able to kind of go through and make sure that there was no ambiguity, make sure that there were always people saying like, we exist beyond that. Make sure that the Facebook group, there's Facebook groups inspired by the Quidditch Facebook groups that really exist. Make sure that the Facebook group had like fuck turfs in their description, so that there would be no question. And I think that in that round, I also scrubbed a lot of the Harry Potter references, maybe especially from the end, because the beginning they were harder to take out.
Yeah, I think that was really, I think it was just a really well done tactic for, you know, not ignoring where we came from, but, you know, as Ashton talked about at your launch party video, which you can watch on YouTube. You can hear Brandy Cannon and Ashton John Eulis talk about Quidditch with Anna. Books belong to their readers, and we're very clear as a Quidditch community on where we stand. That's, you know, 100% reflected in this book, that we value people of all genders, of all races, of all identities. You know, you have a place with us if this is something that you want to spend your free time on, or even you're not free time on. You know, people who are plenty busy love to dive into everything. So we had a couple questions submitted to us before that I want to make sure that we get to them. So how did you feel when you finished the book? What was that experience like? I know that you finished many books before, but this one sounds like was with you a while.
Yeah, I think I was just very relieved to have proved that I could do it, because I did write my other series, the Love, Sugar, Magic series, and I think I maybe had finished one or even two of those books before I finished this book, but they were always on deadline. I was like lucky enough to work with Cake Literary, so it was sort of a collaborative process from the beginning, and I actually had someone saying like, the book is due by X date. And I have always worked better under a deadline, so it was kind of scary to think like I'm choosing a career path where I will always have homework and no particular deadline. Like I have to be self-motivated to write things. So I think that finishing this book was like, okay, I can do it. I have done it. Nobody wanted this book. not they didn't want it, but nobody asked for this book. This was just something that I wanted to put out in the world, and I was able to get it done. That was a good feeling. And yet I still find myself back at that point today because I'm kind of working on my next, all my projects that were under contract are over now. Not over, but because I have the companion to this one, but I've like drafted that. So right now I'm basically picking what project I want to work on next, and it's kind of daunting to pick something brand new that, again, nobody has asked for or wants to see or is waiting on, and just say, I would like to write this. Let's see how it goes. So I'm, remembering that I was able to do it with this book is like a nice motivation.
So you just mentioned there's going to be a companion book. Can you give us a little bit more information on that?
Yes. Okay. So I'm excited. I know some people in this community might be a little sad. It's not directly Quidditch related. The companion book is going to be the way that this was Quidditch Cinderella. The companion book is going to be Snow White Marching Band. So another nerdy sport community that I was involved in and really, really enjoy. It's going to take place 5 years later. It's going to have overlapping characters, but it takes place 5 years later. So Ellen will be out of college. I don't want like too many spoilers, but like having some job hunt difficulties, like many of us do. And the main character is going to be her little sister, who in this book is 10 years old. She's a presence. I think like Ellen thinks a lot about their relationship and how her little sister is like going to grow up, and she wants to make sure that like, her parents and the world treat her little sister right. It's part of like her, her feelings about the world being unjust center on that sometimes. And so it's kind of exciting to like switch that and have Yasmin be the center and have her be this very different character who looks at the world very differently, who looks at her family very differently, and have her see Ellen and be like, oh yeah, my weird older sibling, like, who knows what she's up to, playing Quidditch, I don't know. So, but yes, so that's going to be another contemporary loose fairy tale retelling. Yasmin starts out as a flute player. She gets exiled by like the queen of the flutes to the low brass section with 7 freshman boys, and has to number one learn how to play the tuba or the sousaphone, and then number 2 like navigate some cyberbullying and some like drama that is happening as that all goes down in marching band community, which is fun. I also have a short story that is Quidditch related. It'll be in an anthology called Game On, which is going to be a bunch of sports and game stories, like board games and video games and stuff. So that's going to be a really fun anthology. A lot of great YA authors are going to be involved. If you want to look it up, it's Game On, edited by Laura Silverman. I can't remember when it comes out. It's going to be a little while, but so in that one, we'll get to see Aaron and Aaron again, my favorite chaos beater twins they're not twins, from this book. And we're going to see Shumiao, who is Ellen's best friend who does not play Quidditch. She's going to be kind of a peripheral character. And we'll get to see some new characters, either who have been playing Quidditch or learning Quidditch for the first time. So yeah, I have at least one short story that'll be more Quidditch.
Awesome. Well, Ellen's sister was such a delight. Just spoilers. You talked earlier about the editing advice you got from one of your friends to make sure that each moment had emotional resonance, and I loved how Ellen's sister really helped drive that moment in the final game. There's, family reactions to Quidditch are going to be all over the place. And sometimes no matter how long you play, your family's never going to truly respect you. It's kind of like any niche thing that you're really, really into. Also, you get to a point where your family's like, I'm not going to go to this concert anymore. I went to all of your choir concerts. I don't have to go to this.
Yeah.
But it was so lovely to see how her sister embraced it, and then how Quidditch almost helped as a way to like reconcile and bring the family together. We talk about found family a lot in the Quidditch community. Teammates are our family in that regard. And to see how Quidditch, you know, through that game, through the efforts of Ellen's sister, helped to repair another kind of family. I think that was really special.
Yeah,
And
and
raise the
also,
stakes of that game too.
yeah, when her, I know, spoiler alert, when her family comes and watches the game. Also the connection that Ellen gets with her mom, who played soccer, is, I think, something that like was fun to do, showing like that, you know, sports community and family going together. Yeah, but so Yasmin, really great character, always like doing this kind of dance of like making everyone happy. So getting to write her point of view was fun, because Ellen, not interested in making people happy particularly, like ever. Maybe some people, not her family. Or at least she doesn't have the skills to do it, even if she would maybe want to. She's just kind of she's a little bit more abrasive. And then writing Yasmin, who is very careful and very people pleaser, and yeah, just a very different outlook, different perspective, different voice, which was fun for me to practice. Yeah, I like that.
So another question we got was, what was the most difficult part of writing the book?
Ooh. So many answers. Plotting. No, not really. I mean, I think there were a lot of like things that were technically difficult. Introducing that many characters was something that I kept having to work on in drafts rounds of edits. I think I finally gave Aaron his iconic baseball hat. I don't know if it's iconic, but there's a character who's often mentioned with his baseball hat, because my editor was finally like, just give everyone one characteristic, like one thing that we can latch onto. And I was like, okay, all right. This kid has bangs. This kid has a hat. Like, done. So there were difficulties with that. And for me, I loved all those characters so much. And like Elizabeth also was a character who kind of had to evolve over time, because I could see her so clearly and she wasn't always coming across on the page. So I think that was one thing that I enjoyed doing. I liked fleshing out those side characters, but it took a long time. It took a lot of revisions. I think that emotionally, the thing that was hardest was one of my last rounds of big edits. Two things were going on. First thing was I was changing a lot of details about my protagonist. When I started this book in 2014, I felt very concerned and very worried that people were going to like map me onto my character, and I didn't want that. So I wrote the character I wrote outside of my lane. I wrote her as a different race, and she was still dealing with those bicultural things, but it wasn't something that I was familiar with. I was sort of like doing research, but it's very hard to do research when you're writing that close of a perspective. And so I think finally towards the end, I got a sensitivity reader who told me like, maybe back away from this, because you're talking about experiences that you don't have the like perspective to really talk about. And it made me realize that I was really trying to write about some identity things that I was feeling, and I shouldn't try to map that directly onto somebody else's experience. So I was like, okay, we're going to go back to the beginning. We're going to make Ellen share more of my identities. And that was hard. So I had to rewrite some of those scenes that had been like less painful to write when I was writing them in an imaginary way. And instead I was writing like things that had really happened to me, like, people saying things about like, oh, well, you're just basically this, right? Like, or I don't know, different things with that. And at the same time as all of that, while I was making those edits, which made the book so much better and like were the right choice, and I'm 100% happy that I did that. While I was doing that, I had broken my pelvis playing at a tournament in 2019. And so I couldn't play Quidditch that whole year. And I was revising some of these scenes. I was writing about Ellen getting tackled for the first time, having just taken a tackle that like really upset my life. So that was, again, a very emotional process. I really missed Quidditch, but I was also like feeling like, is it right to say, haha, I feel so like I'm a little person, but I can be strong and I can take a tackle, when like I have been injured doing this. So I think that was like the most difficult round of edits, the two most difficult emotional things I was grappling with when working on this book. I'm totally back on board. Little people can play Quidditch. That was a real fluke tackle, don't worry.
Yeah, I don't know about everyone else, but after Ellen had that tackle, I kind of held my breath for a little bit, because if you've never experienced it, it can be a weird experience, even if someone is easing you into it, right? As Ellen does. I think her tackling partner is Elizabeth,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're doing exercises that I've done. I learned how to tackle through rugby, and like, you start, maybe you're on your knees and then someone pushes you over and then you stand up, and you learn about taking them to the ground. It's a little bit different in rugby because no broom between your legs or anything, but
Yeah.
you definitely felt the intensity of that moment. And especially juxtaposed with, I think that was one of the first, it wasn't the first practice, because that one, spoiler, Ellen's first practice, she doesn't get to do that much.
Yeah.
But it was one of the earlier ones. And again, talking about the discussion you had with Brandy and Ashton last month, I know some of the context aspects can really surprise people when they first start playing.
Yeah.
I think we all felt for Ellen then, as she like crashed to the ground because she wasn't prepared for it. And then I think she had a
Yeah.
moment in a game where she wasn't quite ready for it, or it took her off guard at least.
Yes. Okay. That was 100% based on my first like tackle. And I think not to be like that kid, but that writer, but I think the line is like, we're not supposed to fly in Quidditch, but I do. And that was really how I felt when I took my first like in-tournament tackle. And I was such a wimp about it. Like, I think I had, somebody carry me limping off the field. I was fine. It was not a big deal. But it was just such a shock to be like, I'm standing here and suddenly I'm standing like on the hoops. And I'd been 3 or 4 feet in front of the hoops. That was just like such a shock to me. So I think I remember that being just like an experience that I wrote exactly how I remembered it. And then, yeah, but I wrote after she has her first like practice with tackles, then she has the like going home and like checking out your bruises and suddenly feeling like cool about it. And that was number one for me, like a scene that I just loved to write. It was really my experience. And then I saw someone who was reading the book, a Quidditch kid, was tweeting about it and saying like, oh, I just miss like finding your bruises. And I was like, I read about that. They were like, I know, I'm reading your book. I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's such a novelty when you're just starting out, especially if you don't come from a sports background. Although, even if you do come from a sports background, right? I think that's one of the fresh and interesting things about Quidditch that makes it so fun to play, is that it's going to be a little bit different than anything you've done before. And you start to take pride in the way that your body, for good or for worse, is responding to what you're doing, right? Like I've been doing aerials, trapeze for a while now, and we're the same thing with our bruises. I'll check my hip crease, or my side on my upper back, and I'll see scrapes and bruises and welts, and it's like, yeah, that's where I rolled over and I nailed that trick. Or if it's a Quidditch practice, like that's when I got that gnarly knee skin, but then like caught the ball, or maybe I won the turtle when you're huddled together with all those players.
Yep.
It was nice to have to be in there with Ellen as she was getting to celebrate the changes that were happening, even though they might have hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're towards the end of our time. So I want to offer you a little bit of a chance to talk about some of the other work that you've done. I know you mentioned Love, Sugar, Magic. What are those books like? What are, if you liked This Is How We Fly, why might you like Love, Sugar, Magic, or some of the other books that you've done?
Yeah. So Love, Sugar, Magic is a younger book series. It's for middle grade, which is, that means the characters are more like 11 and 12 years old. But I feel like if you enjoy reading about teens, you probably also enjoy reading about 12-year-olds. Like it's not that different. Some series start at 11 or 12 and go all the way up to 17. Um, so that series is fantasy. It's all about a character who, lives in Texas. Her family runs a panaderia, like Mexican bakery. And she discovers that they have also been not just baking normal sweetbreads, but also doing magic with their recipes. They can make bread that has magical effects. And so she is the youngest sister, and she spends a lot of her time sort of like trying to keep up with her older sisters, prove that she can do magic just as well as anyone else, prove that she can bake just as well as anyone else. So I think that Leo, who's the main character of that series, she shares a lot of, I think, Ellen's like drive. It's directed in a different way, but she has that sort of like I want to go get it. I don't know what it is. It's not the same thing as what Ellen wants necessarily, but whatever it is, I'm going to go for it. She has that same, like, I think a nice review called her like gently flawed, where she's making some decisions that you're going to be like, oh, what? No, which is how I feel about Ellen a lot. And there's magic and there's cookies, and she's not vegan, so she gets to eat a lot better food than Ellen is often eating: peanut butter and celery.
So much peanut butter.
I had a friend text me in the middle of reading and just say, I want her to eat some food. Oh my God. I was like, yeah, I know. And your character, this is a writer friend, your character is such a good cook, and he's vegan, and he's always making amazing food. And Ellen's like this little gremlin in the corner eating ice cream.
And she's
not even ice cream, rice cream.
Like, gotta be so many vegan restaurants. I just felt so bad for all her plain proteins.
She's not good at it, but she only started being vegan like 6 months ago. It's fine. She'll figure it out.
She'll learn.
And then I think that's my only books that I have right now. I do have 2 anthologies coming out next year. One is called Up All Night. I have a short story about bringing an emotional support dog to prom, which is fun. And the other one is called Living Beyond Borders. It's all about Mexican American teens, kind of like different experiences that have been had. So those are my 2 books coming out next year.
And you also did an adaptation of Frankenstein, right?
I did. Gotta text that guy back. No, that's a reference to One Day at a Time. I always forget about that one. I did write that. Frankenstein, yes. It is for the Ghostwriter series on Apple Plus, and that was fun. And I rewrote Frankenstein.
Like that amazing thing from the 90s on Nickelodeon.
Yeah. They did a reboot. It's like set in a library now, so the ghost like comes out as literary characters. And so they have like current kids lit authors writing versions of the different books. I think it's headed by Kwame Alexander, who's amazing. Don't quote me on that though. And it has some really cool different things going on. They got like an actual Southeast Asian person to write the Jungle Book, which Rudyard Kipling would probably be spinning in his grave as he deserves. So that was a fun series to work on, and I got to kind of dig into what I like about Frankenstein, but like focus less on the murders, because it's for kids.
And for other reads, if someone wanted to pick up a book that was maybe in the same stream as This Is How We Fly, maybe sports or non-sports, do you have any book recommendations for people?
I do. So this is called Furia. It just came out. It's by Shamile Syed Mendez. It's like soccer and feminism, the Me Too movement, but not exactly called that, I think. And professional soccer, like professional hopeful soccer players. And I've heard amazing things. I haven't started it yet. It's on my TBR. You know how it is. But sports books. There's another soccer book actually called Running with Lions by Julian Winters, ? I should know this better. Yeah, that's about a whole soccer team and kind of like a romance. Really fun read. It reads a little bit like fan fiction, which is a huge compliment from me. And then there's a couple coming out soon. The friend that I was mentioning, writer friend, Johnny Garzavia, is the author of 1500 Miles from the Sun, which is, again, kind of like a coming of age Texas story. I really loved reading that one because I saw so much reflected and also so much different. It's set in Corpus Christi, Texas. And there is the main character plays soccer. It's maybe not like his whole arc, but it's a definite part of his personality. He's also vegan and cooks. So there's a lot of overlap there. So it's not out yet, but it's coming out this year, 1500 Miles from the Sun. And then what else? If you just want to like be aware of the like different books that are out that talk about gender, this is Cemetery Boys. It's fantasy. It's got a trans mask main character, which is fun. And they're brujos. I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway,
I love
those are
it.
some books that I have here to talk about that are great.
If you like to read along a theme, as I sometimes do, those will keep you in kind of the headspace of the different parts of This Is How We Fly.
Yeah.
While exploring new authors. This is a great time to read outside of your normal palette because all we have is time. If you can't play Quidditch, reading. Working out as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, or do push-ups.
I'm reading, to be honest. I've read more books than I've done push-ups, but
really, okay. I'm like, I have the focus problem where right now all I can read is things that are like due, again, working under deadline. So I have some books that I have to read because I'm judging a contest, and I have some books that I have to read because I'm doing events with the authors, and that's like all I've read. Oh, Blaze Wrath Games. I forgot that one, and that one's super relevant. If you haven't heard of Blaze Wrath Games, it is a new fantasy sports YA all about a world where dragon sport exists and is like a big deal. And the main character suddenly gets to join the Blaze Wrath Cup team for Puerto Rico. And it just really has all of those great feels that you want from a fantasy book. You know, there's like, you get to learn about the different magicians and how they like progress through the ranks. It has some clear inspiration from large fantasy series that we've all read and engaged with, again, without having the actual direct ties and supporting the author. But they go to a wand shop at one point and it feels very familiar, but also different. Dragons bursting out of places and crashing around and causing damages, just so a lot of fun. That book was like one of the books I was able to read quickly this year, which is nothing else has hooked me like that because my brain is all over the place and not wanting to focus on reading.
Well, thank goodness for push-ups.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a delight to talk with you. I could spend hours gushing about this book and how relatable it was in very cringy ways, but it's just been so good to talk with you. To our readers watching this, I hope you had a great experience with it. If you're watching this and you have not yet read the book, remember it's called This Is How We Fly, available to purchase, or you can get it from your wonderful library. Libraries are still having services. You can get books for free. You could read this on a Kindle if you want, or on your phone.
It's on Libby.
Yeah, there's so many.
Oh yeah, there is an audiobook.
Yeah, you know, if you want to listen to it while you do your push-ups, you know.
Thanks Mary so much for having me and for reading and for having all these thoughtful questions about it. I think you mentioned my launch event, and if anyone did want to watch that, it's on my website at annameriano.com/thisishowwefly. I just wanted to put that because I remember you said it and I was like, I should tell people the link for that.
Well, thank you everyone for watching. And if you want to watch more programs like this, go to usquidditch.org and also check out our Facebook. We have a lot of information there. So thank you everyone. Bye.
Yay, bye.